I enjoy watching conversations like this primarily because it allows me to see how, I don't want to use the word out of touch people tend to be, especially intellectual people who are coming at things from a good spot, but tend to have an underestimation as to how the real world works. For a long time, people like me, for most of my life, I tended to be very much, capitalist only. Nobody gets anything for free, blah, blah, blah. Because, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and back then there were just the idea of moving into a society where people couldn't work anymore was still like Star Trek fantasy kind of stuff. And that's just the way that it was for us for most of time. But now we're starting to move into a place where things like universal basic income, which was the most horrible thing you could think of as a rational person back in the 90s, is now something where it's like, I don't know if we have a choice but to do that at this point. Until you start to understand the reality of the world in which we live. Most of human history has been spent with some people at the top making big decisions that screw everybody else over for their own benefit, and the future of America is more than likely going to try to go down that way. Now, why do I say all of this? I would love to imagine that we're going to live in a world where we all come together to figure out this unemployment problem. I mean, I've been unemployed for a long time. My expertise is right there in the field of things that are getting wiped out by automation, and I'm old enough now that starting over in anything else is very difficult. It's very difficult to try to start over at the beginning, entry level again for the third time in my life. It's like, I mean, I'll do it if I can find something that makes sense to do, that's not, that doesn't screw with my disabilities and things like there's so many people out there who have situations very similar to mine where we're willing to do something productive, but we have limitations on our bodies or some people just aren't smart enough to figure these things out. And we just have to, we don't really have a lot of options other than people coming in to help us. The reality, though, is that the rich people, the powerful people have already figured out and have come up with the answer to this question of what do we do with all the people who can't work as we continue to automate these things and make things more productive. I mean, they've proven it over the course of the entire history of capitalism. As people become obsolete, they get fired, they get abandoned, and you're left to fend for yourself. I can't think of too many companies, corporations, big businesses out there that have gone out of their way to diminish their own profits for the sake of the people. And that is the model that we need to use that is the model we need to use as our basis of how we see things going forward. Because as nice as it is to want something like universal basic income, the reality is that the people who control things, the people who have the money, the people who have the power, they already decided what was going to happen a long time ago, and we're not invited to that discussion. We're just not invited. They've already decided what's going to happen. They're going to build more and more for themselves, and the rest of us are going to be left to fend for ourselves, to starve and die. And it won't matter how much we whine and complain and beg and plead or any of that stuff. They're going to sit in their ivory towers while they watch the rest of us live in squalor and starve and die of disease and all of these other things. And they're just going to be like, should have figured it out. That's on you. Your problem. I don't know why you're coming to me. I got mine. You figure it out. Because that's what they do now. It's exactly what they do now. Most of the businesses out there, especially the massively big, crazy big corporations, that's their attitude. That's the attitude they have right now when, people have something to contribute. They're still, well, I don't need you anymore. Not my problem. Figure it out. And if you don't think that that's the way that that's going to go in the next 20 years as AI steps in and takes over most of the job labor market and the rest of us don't really have anything to do, you think they're going to fork out billions and trillions of dollars to allow the rest of us to live comfortable lives while they're doing whatever it is that they're doing to try to take things? They're not going to do that. They've never shown any history of doing that. I would love for universal basic income to become a thing. But the only way that that's going to become a thing is if there's a war for it. And I'm sorry that that's the way that it is, but it's the way that it is. These people these people don't care about anything but their own power and success. You don't have to like conjecture that. You just have to look at the history of corporations over the history of everything. Anybody who is in a position of power, entire human history, the people in power do what they need to do to keep their power and grow it, and they don't care what happens to the rest of us. They only care when there's a reason to care, when the people are going to rise up and do something about it. And, you know, universal basic income might happen, but it's going to take a civil war to do it. I don't like that being the way that it is, but it is the way that it is. Because people who live in privilege, people who live in a better situation, they're just not in a place to appreciate how hard it is at the bottom. Even if they came from the bottom, most of them have been at the top for so long that they don't remember what it was like. They've grown accustomed to having money, to having power, to having all of these things. And that's why you get these attitudes from people who are 6-figure, 7-figure people who look down on the rest of us who can't figure it out and say, well, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get a job, figure it out, make it happen. I mean, until the people at the top either get a clue and realize that the constant oppression that they're trying to exert on everybody is going to backfire in their face at some point, or we force them to give us what we need to survive, and that's probably the way it's going to go. Things like universal basic income and the kind of utopian future that we all envision for ourselves just can't become a thing, because as long as there is a concept of concentrated power among the human dynamic that we have right now, the people that have the power are going to try to prevent anyone else from getting anything, because they understand the idea that there's only so much out there, and the more they give away to other people, the less they have for themselves. I know we have these ideas of wealth creation and all that stuff, but the reality is it is a zero-sum game. There is only so much to go around, and some people want as much of it as they can get, and they don't care how they screw other people over to get to it. So I just wanted to take a moment, because I'm watching this podcast and they're talking about post-labor economics and things like that. And, you know, I'm glad people have these positive outlooks, and I hope that we push for those things. But at the same time, the longer you're alive, the more you understand human nature, and you understand that, you know, people suck. And the more people have, the more they tend to suck. And the more people have, the less they care about the people around them. And the more they start feeling entitled to certain things, and the more they demand that you sacrifice things of yourself to give to them. It's just the way human beings have been for our entire existence. The powerful decide and control and manipulate, and the rest of us just have to kind of figure it out. And that's the way it works. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of, I hate to make a video that's just putting a downer on you, but it is something we need to keep in the back of our minds. People with power and money are not going to just give it away. We either need to convince them in advance that it's in their best interest to do it, because if they don't do it now, they're going to piss everybody off to the point where we have no choice but to just come and take it from them. And it's much easier to do this stuff in a voluntary manner than to lose everything when the mob comes and just rips all of your shit away. I mean, it's just, we really need to get the rich people, the rich and powerful people, to start kind of ingraining that into their brain, because I don't care what kind of AI stuff you have, when the entire population is starving and dying and they have nothing left to lose, they will come and just take your stuff. And I don't care how many robots you have, you're not stopping it. Not billions of people. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Hit the like button, subscribe to help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you for the next one.